Hi, my name is Alex Cam. In today's video we are going to create a script using Python to automate the configuration of OSPF in these Cisco routers. This is a typical use case. You are a network engineer in charge to deploy some configuration in your network. Let's say that you have 50 devices and you have your script. But for you to do this task, you have to connect to each device one by one and apply your script. This will take time, and also maybe you can make some mistakes in your configuration. So to avoid that, we are going to create a script using Python, also using two libraries, Netmiko and Pandas. We are going to use Netmiko to access to these devices using SSH, and we are going to use Pandas to read the information required for this configuration. So we are going to start with this lab, and as you can see on the screen, we have a small topology. We have 5 routers, and these routers are connected to each other, and we are going to configure OSPF, and we have to establish OSPF session between these connections. But first, what we are going to do is we need to be able to connect to these devices using SSH. So first, what we are going to do is we are going to configure SSH on each of these devices, and we are going to validate if we can connect to these devices using SSH. So we will start with that. I'm going to connect to R1, and as you can see, we don't have any additional configuration. This configuration is the base configuration of this router. So what we are going to do now is we are going to configure the SSH connection. So we are going to start. This is going to be called R1. We are going to generate the RSA key. This is for the SSH connection. So we are going to wait until it generates. Okay, we are going to enable SSH version 2. We are going to create a username. This is the username that we are going to use to access to this device using SSH. So this is going to be the user, and this is going to be the password. So with this, we have finished the configuration for SSH. Now we have to configure the port that we are going to use to access through SSH. In this case, in this topology, all of these devices are using port 3 for the connection, for the management connection. In this case, the port 3 is connected to a switch, and this switch is connected to my LAN network. So what we are going to do is we are going to configure this port. And what IP are we going to configure? We have this small IP planning. In this case, in this Excel file, I have some information that we are going to use for this configuration. This part is the NE name, which is R1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and also the IPs. This IP that is listed in this part is the IP that we are going to use on the port 3. This is the IP for management. And the port by default is port 22. So this IP we are going to use. This is mask 24. So we will do that. We are going to access to port 3, and we are going to configure it's 100. Yes, 100 and 101 for R2, 102 for R3, 103 for R4, and 104 for R5. So we save this as 100. So okay, we have the configuration of the IP ready, and we can make a test. Let's try to connect. We are going to use the username that we created before. Okay. And we put the password. And as you can see, we can access the device using SSH. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to finish the configuration of the other devices so we can access all of them using SSH. I'm going to pause the video and then I'm going to come back when the configuration is finished. So the configuration is finished. What we are going to do now is we're going to test if we have the SSH connection ready. So we are going to try to connect. Well, 100 belongs to R1. R1 is okay. We try R2. R3. R4. And R5. So, as we can see, we have the SSH connection ready. We have management to all the devices in this topology. So this is the first part. We have to be able to connect using SSH for our script to work correctly. So once the SSH configuration is ready, what we are going to do is we are going to make the script. But before, we have to consider the installation of two libraries. One is Netmiko and the other one is Pandas. For this case, the libraries are already installed, but the commands are very simple. We execute pip install and we put Netmiko. Netmiko is the library that we're going to use for the SSH connection. We are going to use Netmiko to connect to the routers and apply the configuration. And as you can see, this library is already installed in this laptop. So the other library is Pandas. Pandas is going to be used for our script to get the information from the Excel file. The Excel file that I showed before, we are going to use this Excel file for this configuration. So for our script to read the information of this Excel, we are going to use Pandas. And the command for the installation is simple also. Is pip install pandas. And also the library in this case is installed. So once the libraries are installed in our laptop, what we are going to do is make the script. So the script is going to be the configuration for OSPF for all the routers in this topology. And also what we are going to do is we are going to save the log file. And once you configure you apply the configuration from your script into the router, the script, the Python script, is going to save this configuration that you applied in a text file. This is something that we are going to do also in our Python script. And then as a plus at the end, we are going to apply multi-threading. We are going to see that our script is going to connect to each devices one by one. It's going to connect based on the information of the Excel file. The Excel file consists of these rows. Each row belongs to one router. So our script is going to connect first to this row that belongs to R1, applies the configuration, and then goes to R2, applies the configuration, then goes to R3, and like that. If you have 5 devices, it will not take that much time. But if you have 50, then maybe this script can take longer to be completed. So what we are going to do at the end is we are going to show a way to do this in parallel. So the script can connect to many devices at the same time and apply the configuration. That is going to save a lot of time. So we are going to start. We are going to create the script in Python. So I have this directory which is called lab2, and I'm going to create one file. In this case, it's going to be called script2.py. In this case, our script is going to, we are going to start our script importing the libraries. We are going to import Netmiko, and we are going to import Pandas. Then we are going to define the function. This script is going to be written inside a function. So we are going to create a function. We are going to put the name of configure OSPF. And as an argument, we are going to send a row. This row belongs to the row that we are going to read from the Excel. This function is going to receive the information, for example, of R1, which is the name of the device. Is going to receive the IP of the port 3. This is the IP that we use for the SSH connection, and also the port of the SSH. Then we are going to configure a loopback IP, and in OSPF this IP is going to be the router ID, and the mask is going to be 32, and also we are going to configure the IPs of the interfaces that we are going to use for the interconnection between the routers. So for this case, the port 0 is interface to device 1 is going to have this IP with this mask. This mask is 24. And device 1, router 1, doesn't have an interface to another device. Only has one interconnection. For R2, the same. R2 is going to have an IP. This IP belongs to the port 3 that we are going to use for the SSH connection. The port, which is for SSH, the loopback is going to be 2.2.2.2/32. And also, in this case, R2 has 2 interconnections. One port that connects to R1 and the other port connects to R3. So the interconnection to device 1 in port 0 is going to have this IP. This is the mask for this IP. And then for the second device, which is port 1, which is this one, we are going to configure this IP and this mask. And that is the logic of this Excel. So what we are going to do in our function is we are going to send the row. And the row is going to be sent because we are going to use Pandas for that. So that's what we are doing in our function. We are going to send a row. Then we are going to do a try except. This is for error handling. We are going to print something on the screen in case some error occurs and we don't break our code. So in case something occurs, something happens in our code, we are going to print on the terminal that we have an error on the device, and we are going to put the device name, which is the information that we have in this part, NE, which is the name of the device. We are going to put the name of the device, and then the error that we get. We are going to start the configuration for the connection. We are going to use Netmiko to connect to each router using SSH. But for Netmiko, we're going to define a dictionary, and that dictionary is going to have the information required for Netmiko to connect to the device. So we are going to configure the dictionary. We're going to define it. The device type is a Cisco iOS. Then we're going to put the IP. The IP is inside the information that we get from the Excel. So in this case, we have row IP. The same for port. This is the data that is in this part. The username. This is the information that we configure on the SSH part of our video. At the beginning, we configured the user and password to connect using SSH. So we are going to use that information here. And that's it. We're going to use this information for the connection using Netmiko. So we are going to find a connector. And we are going to send this argument, this argument, we are going to send the dictionary. So we are going to print something on the screen saying that we were able to connect to the device. Okay. So then what we are going to do now is we are going to configure the commands that we are going to use for the OSPF part. So we are going to put in here the configuration that we are going to use to enable OSPF in the routers. So we are going to create a variable for that. So first we're going to configure the loopback interface. In this case, we are going to use this information for this configuration of loopback. This loopback 1. And the address and the mask. So in here we configure the loopback interface. So now we are going to configure the OSPF part. OSPF is router OSPF 1. And then we are going to define the router ID. Router ID is going to be the loopback IP, so we are going to use that. we're going to use the command network and the loopback IP. The wildcard is going to be all zeros because this is a 32 mask, and everything is going to be inside area 0. And then we are going to configure the interfaces. As you can see here, in this topology, we have R1, the interface that has connection to the other router is port 0. In port 0 is going to have an IP. R2 has two interfaces, one that connects to R1 and the other one connects to R3. And in these two interfaces, this device has an IP also. And the same for the rest of the topology. So what we are going to do here is we have this information in this Excel. The interface device 1, the IP for that interface, and the mask for that IP of this interface. This is for one connection, and this is for the other connection. In case of R1, R1 only has IPs, only has one connection. So the information for the secondary of the other connection doesn't exist. We have to evaluate that in our script. So first, as you can see, all of the devices has at least one connection, but some devices has two connections, not all of them. So we are going to configure first this part, which is the first connection. We are going to use interface role in the name of the in this name, which this belongs to the first interface. And we are going to put in here the IP, which is this part. IP. And then the mask. Then we're going to enable OSPF because we are going to establish OSPF session between the routers. So we are going to use the process that we created before, which is process 1 in area 0. And then we're going to not shut down the interface. So this is the first part of the configuration, and then we have to make an evaluation because we have to validate if the device has a secondary connection, has a connection to another device. So we're going to change in here the name part 1, and we are going to define a part 2 in here. But for that part 2 is we have to evaluate first. So we are going to evaluate. In this case, we are going to evaluate this interface. If this interface exists, in this case, this interface has a value. So we are going to say, if the value is different than this character, because this character means that we don't have any information there. So if the character is different than this, means that there is a connection. So we are going to apply the configuration for this second connection. So that's what we are going to do here. The second part, we are going to put we are going to copy this. I'm going to copy and paste it. And we are going to change the name because the names are the same, the only difference is the number. As you can see, these names are the same, the only difference is the number. So this is the first connection and this is the second connection. Else, in case that we don't have any connection, we are going to put this variable. This is not going to contain anything. we are not going to apply any configuration. So until this part, what we have is a configuration that we are going to apply to the router. And this configuration is going to be based on the information of this Excel. Now what we are going to do, we are going to send this configuration using Netmiko to the router. So we are going to use the connector that we created before, send config set, and we are going to send the commands. In this case, we are going to, these commands are separated in two parts. We are going to combine this into everything, all the information of these two parts. We are going to combine it in one. So we're going to do that. Final OSPF config, and we're going to put and we're going to add a line, and then the second part, like this. And this variable that combines the two parts, we are going to send it to the routers using Netmiko. So until this part, and then we are going to print something on the screen. Applied for router. Okay, like this. So until this part, we are completed the configuration. I mean the configuration for Netmiko to connect to the router and apply the configuration that we define in here. But also we said before that we are going to save this configuration into one file, into one txt file. So for that, we are going to save these results into a variable, and this variable is going to be saved into a text file. So what we are going to do now is something that I forgot in here, is that we have to save the configuration. Not only apply, but also save, because if we don't save and this device reloads for some reason, the configuration is going to be lost. So we save. And now we are going to put in here, we are going to, this device anyways returns an output. So we are going to save this output into a file, into a variable. So in here is the output OSPF config. And here is output save config. Okay. And now what we are going to do is we are going to save this into a text file. I think what we can do here is we can add this into a list, and then we can, yes, we do it like that. We are going to create a list in here. Let's put in here a list for results, and this is going to be an empty list. Let's put it like this, and we are going to put a list append, and we are going to append this and this. List for results, append. So with this, what we are going to do is we are saving this, we are going to save the outputs of these commands into a list, and then this list is going to be saved into a text file. So we are going to do that with open, and we are going to open a file, and this file is going to receive two arguments. The first one is the location and the name. So what we are going to do is I created here in this directory one directory called log, and in this directory we're going to save this text file. So inside the log, this is the full path I'm going to save. I'm going to define the name. In this case, the name is going to be the name of the NE of the network element .txt, and this file is going to be with this. We are going to write inside this file, so we put W here, and we are going to define a name as file. So file.write. What we are going to write? We are going to write the containment, the information that is inside the list. So we are going to put join and list for results, and we are going to print on the screen configuration log generated for device. And this is going to be applied in here. And I think we can put this after that we save the configuration, like this. And after we finish, we are going to disconnect. Connector, disconnect. So until this part, we finished our function. Our function is that we connect to the device using Netmiko. We define the commands that we're going to apply into the router, and we are going to get the information from the Excel file. And then we are going to send this configuration to the in this part, I think we have to, yes, in here we have to split lines like this. Yes, we have to split lines because this contains many lines and we have to send one by one. So we are going to split, and then we send the configuration and then we save the configuration. So after that, we print something on the terminal that says the configuration is applied for the router and the name of the router. Then we are going to save this output of the configuration into a list, and then this information is going to be saved into a text file. Then we print something on the screen that says the configuration log is generated, and then we disconnect to the router. We disconnect from the router. So the function is ready right now. What we are going to do now is we're going to read the information from the Excel. So what we are going to do now is we are going to read this information using Pandas. We are going to read the Excel, and we are going to apply the function that we defined before. So we are going to read the Excel files. We are going to use Pandas for that. Read Excel, and we are going to read the information of this Excel. We are, in this case, this Excel, we have to copy the path, and then we are going to define the sheet name. The sheet name is called devices, so we copy the name and we paste it in here. So with this, we are reading the information in this Excel and in this sheet, and we are going to store this information in this data frame, in this variable. So after that, we are going to use a for loop for iterate. For the iteration of this data frame. So what it means is that when we read this Excel, we are going to iterate each row. So on the first iteration, on the first cycle, we are going to read the information related to R1. On the second cycle, we are going to read information related to R2, and so on. So for each iteration, we are going to execute this function. We are going to execute the function, and we are going to send it. We are going to send the row. So let's see. With this, we finished the script, and we can test if our script is working correctly. So let's run. So it mentions that we are connected to R1, and the configuration is executed, and the log is generated. The same for R2. It's connected and configuration applied, and the log generated. For R3 the same, for R4 is going to be the same, and for R5 is going to be the same too. So let's see. Let's wait until this script finished. So you can see that R1, R2, R3, R4, and R5 are generated. So we can see here that we see the IPs of the loopback one, the IPs of the OSPF, and interface IP for the interconnection. So we see that for R1 we configure only one interface because this device doesn't have a second interface to another device. So for R2 we see that we have a first connection to, this is the connection to R1, and this is the connection to R2, to R3. So you see that the script is configuring correctly. Same for R3, same for R4, and same for R5. So I think it is correct. And as you can see here in this terminal, is that we executed first on R1, then we executed for R2, then for R3, for R4, and for R5. So you can see that this is one by one. The script connects to the first router, executes the configuration, then connects to the second router, executes the configuration, connects to the third router, executes the configuration, like that. This is okay if we don't have too many devices, but in case that we have 50 devices, this is going to take a lot of time. But for now, let's see if the configuration is applied correctly. IP OSPF neighbor. So R1 is correct. It's correct. It's correct. Yeah, it's correct. It is correct. So as you can see, the OSPF configuration is applied correctly. And let's see. And we can make a ping to the 5.5.5.5 that belongs to router 5, to R5, and we can ping correctly. So with this, this script is working correctly. So what we can do now is that we can improve this script, and we can add threading for this script to execute the configuration in parallel to many devices at the same time. So for that, we are going to import one extra library. This library is by default, it comes by default in Python, so we don't need to install anything. We are going to use threading for that. And we are going to comment this, and we are going to create a thread. But first, we are going to create a list of threads. List of threads. This is going to be an empty list, and in this list we are going to store all the threads. Each thread belongs to an execution of the script, of this function. So we are going to the same for index row in data frame iter rows, and in here we are going to use threading. Thread, we're going to create a variable. This thread belongs to the execution of the script. We are going to use threading thread target, and we are going to use the function as a target, and then the arguments is going to be the row. Then we are going to list of threads, and we append this thread, and then we start the thread. This command, this line says that we are going to execute the thread. If we don't put this line, the thread is not going to be executed. So after that, we are going to wait for all the threads to finish until we stop the script. So we're going to make a for loop for thread in list of threads, and we are going to confirm that we have to wait for all the threads to finish. Okay, so with that, I think we are ready. We can clear here. No, it's not clear, just compare. We are going to execute this. And as you can see, we connected to the 5 devices at the same time. And we apply the configuration at the same time. I think we can delete this so you can see. Let's delete this, and let's execute again this. So we connected to the 5 devices at the same time, and we're going to apply the same configuration to all the devices. I mean the configuration that belongs to each device at the same time, and we're going to generate at the same time. So you see here, we generated for R1, for R2, R3, R4, and R5. Everything almost at the same time. In here appears first R1, then R5, then R2, then R4, then R3. This depends on which device answers first. So it's going to be more like which device answers first. So the device that answers first is going to be executed first. So I think we are done for today's video. As you can see, we have this script that is working, and you can use this script as a configuration template, and you can modify it based on your own requirements. So we are done with that. We finished the configuration of this script, and it's working correctly. So you can use this script as a template for your own requirements. Maybe you are going to configure other protocols. You can use this script as a template. So this is it for today's video. If you find this information useful, please like the video and share it with your friends. I hope you enjoyed your time here, and I will be seeing you on the next video.